Introduction. In the depths of the Egyptian desert, along the banks of the Nile River that carves its way through the land, one of the greatest myths in human history was born, the myth of Isis and Osiris. A story that carries within it power and weakness, love and hatred, death and resurrection. It is a living myth, woven in ancient times but still influences us to this day. In this myth, the ancient human finds themselves caught between the hammer of death and the anvil of life, facing divine struggles, sacred rituals, and the ability to rise after a fall. Through this myth, the Egyptians sought to understand the meanings of life, death, and the afterlife, and they connected the sovereignty of the king with the cosmic order. The origin of the myth. The origins of the myth of Isis and Osiris can be traced back to ancient texts inscribed on the walls of the pyramids, where the ideas of death and resurrection are central. Over time, the myth developed into a full narrative, incorporating complex characters and divine struggles surrounding the death and resurrection of Osiris, Horus' battle with Set, and the restoration of balance to a world threatened by forces of chaos. Before these parts of the myth converged into a single story, there were independent mythological episodes about the death of Osiris and Horus' challenge to Set. Each of these episodes reflected different aspects of Egyptian life and death, chaos and order, and divine kingship. These episodes were later woven together when the pyramid texts were written, forming a unified myth. While the myth of Osiris and his son Horus symbolized the core idea of life after death, another important aspect was the mourning rituals practiced in ancient Egyptian society, which were also part of the myth itself. The Egyptians performed complex rituals to restore life after death, believing that the soul of the deceased could return to life if the rituals were performed correctly, just as Osiris was resurrected. Osiris' character and the interpretation of his death. Osiris was initially regarded as the embodiment of the divine ruler of the dead, but over time, he took on other traits related to life, death, and resurrection. Many scholars, such as James Frazer, suggested that Osiris originally represented the plants that die and return to growth annually with the flooding of the Nile. Although this idea was common, some Egyptologists, like J. Gwyn Griffiths, argued that Osiris was primarily the god of the dead, and his connection to plants was only a secondary development in the story. Over time, the character of Osiris became central to ancient Egyptian culture, often depicted as the god of fertility and agriculture. The annual flooding of the Nile was believed to bring life to the barren lands, just as the death of Osiris symbolized the death of the earth, which was later resurrected. As for the conflict between Horus and Set, some historians interpreted the struggle as an ancient political battle between the rulers of Upper and Lower Egypt, with Horus representing the legitimate ruler who was expected to restore order and justice, while Set symbolized chaos and destruction. This conflict may have arisen due to rivalries between ancient cities like Nekhen and Akkad, which represented the competing powers in the myth. Horus, the son of Osiris, was believed to represent the legitimate kingship of Egypt, while Set was seen as the embodiment of chaos and evil. Therefore, the struggle between Horus and Set was more than just a battle between gods, it was a reflection of the political and social conflicts occurring within Egyptian society. The myth's influence on ancient Egyptian culture. The myth of Isis and Osiris was not merely a tale about the gods, it was the cornerstone of an integrated religious and cultural ideology. The Egyptians believed that the myth was not only about the gods but also represented the human reality, the death of a person and their return to life. Egyptians believed that after death, the king became like Osiris and underwent the process of death and resurrection, which allowed him to be judged in the afterlife as Osiris had been. This popular belief in resurrection after death, as embodied in the myth of Osiris, gave the Egyptians a way to confront their fear of death and their hope for eternal life. This belief formed the basis of the funerary rituals that evolved over time, with tombs and temples built as centers for the worship of Osiris. The influence of the myth also extended to royal culture. Every king aspired to embody Osiris after death, hoping to be resurrected to rule the realm of the dead. In this way, the king became part of the myth itself. One could even argue that the king in ancient Egypt was considered a living embodiment of the gods on earth. The transformation of religious roles and influence on the people. The funerary rituals were deeply influenced by the myth of Isis and Osiris, and they became a driving force in Egyptian culture in later periods. Over time, the worship of Osiris became more widespread, as people believed that honoring this god could grant them life after death. Temples began to be built in various locations, though tombs had initially been the primary centers of worship for Osiris. As the rituals evolved, the myth's influence spread beyond the royal class to the general population. As for Isis, she was regarded as the mother goddess, the protector who played a role in safeguarding the dead and in resurrecting the body of Osiris. Her role evolved over the ages, and she eventually became one of the most prominent deities in Egypt and the Mediterranean world in later periods. The image of Isis holding her son Horus became a symbol of motherhood and sanctity, and she influenced other religions, such as Christianity, in later times. In Roman times, the worship of Isis spread widely across the empire, where it was believed that she had the power to grant life after death and bring healing. The images of Isis and Horus became associated with many religious concepts related to fertility and motherhood, making her influence extend to various other religions and cultures, such as Christianity and the Greco-Roman religions. The conclusion and the myth's temporal extension. As the worship of Isis spread to the Roman world, the myth continued to propagate and influence. The myth of Isis and Osiris, with its themes of death and resurrection, became a symbol of humanity's hope for resurrection and immortality. Even with the rise of Christianity, the myth continued to inspire different religions and cultures, particularly through its influence on the depiction of the Virgin Mary. Today, the myth of Isis and Osiris is no longer just an ancient story, it has become part of the global culture, influencing literature, art, and religion through the ages. With each new discovery in archaeology and philosophy, this myth continues to tell us about the forces of life and death, embodying humanity's aspirations for immortality and renewal. An invitation to join the mythical journey. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of ancient Egyptian mythology and explored the layers of the Isis and Osiris myth, we invite you to continue this journey through our pages. Every myth carries new meanings waiting to be uncovered. Are you ready to dive deeper into the hidden mysteries of the history and beliefs that shaped one of the greatest civilizations of humanity? Subscribe now to be part of this epic narrative and open new doors of understanding and interpretation.